Okay, we're back. It's the Chick Eye Show. We're showing you how to use your single lens reflex digital camera. We hope you are using it on manual. So if you've watched the first two videos, you got some ideas on how to set the exposures to get the exposures correct. That's the most important thing, really. If you get a good exposure, you've got a good picture as long as you set your ISO to get a quality picture, right? Okay, so we talked about Chick Eye, the aperture, the shutter speed, whether we're barefoot or compressed in a shoe. And we talked about the ISO. What are we recording on or into? What are the settings? What's the math there? Okay, we didn't really talk about the math, right? We talked about how to visually do it if we use the light meter. Okay, so we talked in the first video on those three items. Then we talked about the light meter itself. Now, I didn't get into the light meter a lot, but now that you know that that bar that's inside your camera is the light meter, and when you have the camera set on manual, the idea, hypothetically, is to get the camera to read, once you set the aperture and the shutter speed, to get the camera to read at 0, or possibly you find that your meter doesn't really read real good. You don't like the way it reads. If you've been out there taking a lot of pictures, you'll be testing your meter. And so maybe your meter, this is a minus and this is a plus, maybe your meter needs to be a little bit off to the right to get a good picture, or maybe just in bright light it needs to be a little bit off to the right, otherwise it needs to be on 0 if you're in an even lighting situation. Okay, so we've been looking at this meter inside the viewfinder. All right, what we want to know now is, how is the camera meter reading? What light is it reading? Because there are settings in the camera where we can adjust for the meter setting. So if you look in your camera manual, you will find that they have a center weighted, someplace on your camera there's a center weighted meter reading. Center weighted, I believe, might look like that. There's a spot meter reading, and then there's an average meter reading, and I don't remember what the average meter reading looks like, but it's the whole box, right? So the meter, that meter or that line inside the camera is either reading the average of the whole picture, okay, the average of the whole picture, or it's doing spot metering, okay, or it's doing center weighted metering, okay. Center weighted metering is good for a photograph, because if it's center weighted and you're taking a photograph, the person's in the middle, you know, it center weights the light around the middle of the photograph. Okay, spot metering. Okay, spot metering is a different issue. And what happens is you got buttons on the camera, all right? And maybe we should talk about some of the buttons on the camera as far as autofocus, because autofocus does kind of the same thing. There's your exposure focus, your automatic exposure, and your automatic focus. All right, your automatic exposure and your automatic focus. So we know how to manually do this, but we still want to know how the meter is reading. And if we set it on spot metering, what it does is there will be a button someplace on your camera. And if you hold your camera into the light that you're going to take the picture in. So let's say that you're in this scene and you got this bright sunlight, and then you got shade, and you're taking a picture of the squirrel, and the squirrel is in the shade. All right. Now, the camera, if it averages the whole area, it's not going to read for the shade. It's going to read wrong. The light meter is going to read wrong. So we could use spot metering, okay? We could set the spot metering. And what happens with the spot metering is there's a button on the camera. You aim the camera into the shade, into where the item is that you're going to take a picture of. You hit that button and you hold it. You can't let go of the button. If you let go of the button, it rereads. It really screws everything up. So you'll hold that button. you move back to get it framed the way you want it framed, and then you push your button to take the picture, right? So you gotta look up in your manual because the buttons are in different places on different cameras. But what this is the meter reading, okay, the meter reading. So it can do a spot like that, which is if if you're reading the light over here, but you're taking the picture over here. Then you're gonna use a spot metering. Or if the light is pretty even across the whole scene, okay, you don't have these real hot spots where you have a whole lot of light, you don't have a whole lot of shade in other spots, so you don't have this mixture of lighting. If you don't have a mixture of lighting, then you might be able to set the meter on averaging. Okay, so that's the light meter, and those are just some of the settings that you might have seen if you looked up anything about your light meter, okay, which was that dial when we're using manual, the dial that's in the camera that has the little zero, right? The zero in the middle, which is what we're aiming for, is a zero in the middle. Unless we have odd lighting situations on the negative side, on the positive side, if we're trying to get something that's we're on the ocean or we're in the snow, we want to see the shadows in the snow. We're getting so much reflection that the meter isn't reading exactly right. What we're going to do is knock down the light and have the meter read a little bit to the negative side. Okay, same thing on the water, on the ocean. That'll help you get a better detail in your shadows. Okay, better detail in your shadows to go a little bit out to that negative side. Okay, so that was a little bit about the metering. Now, we didn't talk about white balance and we didn't talk about focus. Okay, so white balance. What is white balance? Well, if I'm in different lighting situation, I could be inside, I could be outside, I could be under fluorescent lights, I could be under just a regular light bulb. Then they have those halogen things. They have all kinds of lights, right? So there's all these different kinds of lights. And when I look at something that's white in different light, the white actually has all the colors of the universe in it. And it reflects whatever colors are around it. And it reflects the type of light. So if I'm outside, the light might have a bluer tone. And if I'm inside, the light might have a yellow or an orangey tone from the lighting, whatever lighting is inside. It just depends. It depends on the type of lighting, actually. So there's cool lighting and there's warm lighting. And if you put a white piece of paper and you take a picture of it indoors and then you take a picture of it outdoors, it'll look like two different pieces of white, right? But if I take the setting that I have indoors and I take it and I go outside and I take the same picture at the same setting outdoors, I get two different colors going on and I'm missing my white. So, so this is really strange conversation. But white balance, what it has to do with is getting the colors right in your picture. Okay, it has to do with getting the colors right in your picture. So white balance, the white, because it looks different under different lighting situations, then the white balance, if it's wrong, then the colors that are in the photograph look wrong. So have you ever looked at a photograph and the person's skin looks orange? Or, the person's skin looks green, okay? It's got too much of some color in it and it's screwing it all up. All right. So with the white balance, for now you can set your camera on automatic white balance because in general, automatic white balance will do a good job of white balancing your photographs. It'll do a good job. Sometimes when you have problems with it, it's when it's indoors. A lot of times I see problems with it when it's indoors on the automatic setting. But you can take a picture, look at it. If it's wrong, then maybe you want to take the automatic off of the white balance. I'm not going to get into that today, but I'm just explaining what white balance is, why it's important, and I would set white balance on automatic for the time being until you understand a little bit more about it. Now, you can set white balance manually, and what happens is you take a test shot of the white that's in the room and tell the camera, this is a lighting situation that you're taking pictures under, and then you'll have your skin colors come up right and all kinds of different things like that. And it depends, are you using flashes, what are you doing? Because everything will change depending on what the light source is. It changes the colors, okay? So white balance has to do with color. If your colors are off, it's because your white balance is off. Just so you know, then you can go into your manual, look up white balance and see what the heck, oh Jesus, this picture came up wrong. I don't want this to happen again. So, you can go in and figure out how to set those settings. Now, focus. The other thing we didn't talk about is focus. And focus is really important too. So, most of the cameras, you push the shutter button or the button down and it focuses it, right? So when you push it halfway, it puts whatever's there in focus. And again, the focus works kind of like the light meter does. You can have a center focus, you can have a spot focus, and you can have, a focus all over. Like you can have 51 points focused and they can be all over. So what you want to do when you're looking up the focus settings in your manual, look for how many points it's focusing on. Is it focusing on 9 points, 51 points? How many different points? Is it doing center weighted focusing? Is it doing spot focusing? And how do you set the focus? Because one of the biggest problems with focus on the camera, and I don't know if you've had this happen because this is a third video and we haven't talked about it yet, but you take the camera and you push that button halfway down and you're almost ready to take the picture and it focuses it and it sets the exposure. This is on automatic, and then you push it the rest of the way, it takes a picture. Well, what a lot of people do is they push the button and they go, oh, it's in focus now, it's in focus, and they let go of the button. They let go of the button. And then they push it again and it refocuses on something else, and then it takes the picture. And you get really frustrated because whatever you're focused on isn't what's in focus. It drives you crazy. So I tell you what I did with my camera. I went into the manual and I found out how to shut off the automatic focus from the picture taken button. So the picture taken button on my camera does not focus. But there is another button on my camera that does focus and will hold the focus if I want it to automatically focus. So there's this button and it says autofocus on, and I can push that button and it automatically focuses, and for as long as I hold my finger on that button, it stays in focus. So I hold it until I take the picture. That is if I'm using autofocus. Now otherwise, I'm using manual focus, okay? So I use the ring and I manually focus, but I can hit that autofocus button fast. I can push the shutter button to take the picture and I can get the picture. So that way my shutter button has nothing to do with my focus. So if I've let go of it by mistake or my finger came off of it, it's not refocusing on something I didn't want to focus on, which drives you nuts, because I know when I first got my digital camera, it was driving me crazy. I finally got it shut off so it wouldn't do that. But anyway, the other thing that happens is, remember we talked about automatic, and sometimes the camera is set so that it won't take a picture unless it's in focus. So if it thinks it's not in focus, it won't take the picture. So you've got to be careful of that too. Because you're going to take a picture, you're ready to take it, and you can't take it because the doggone camera says that it's not in focus. So it doesn't take it, and you're like really pissed off. So that's why I like having the manual focus with the autofocus if I want it. Because I can push that button and autofocus if I want it. Otherwise, I just hit the manual, take the picture, I'm done. The camera takes a picture no matter what. It doesn't care whether it's in focus, out of focus, whatever I focused on is coming in clear. And, some of that, too, has to do with the settings here. If it's supposed to be center focused and it's not center focused, then it's not taking the picture for you, And maybe you wanted it spot focused. You want something else focused on. But if you're spot focusing, you got to hold that button and then pull it back and take the picture. So, depends on how you want to use your settings, how you want to use automatic. If you come to a workshop sometime, you bring your camera and your manual, and then we find the buttons for you. But it's hard for me to tell you where the buttons are without you being in a workshop. Okay, so that tells you about focus and white balance. Focus and white balance. Now I want to show you some pictures. So the next video, I'm going to show you some pictures with different aperture settings, different aperture or f-stop, that's the same thing, right? Aperture, f-stop settings, different shutter speed settings, so that you can see what photographs look like or what some of the differences are by looking at some photographs. It's kind of fun. Okay, so Don't forget, list your questions down below. Any questions you have, comments you have, I appreciate it. If there's anything you'd like me to cover in one of these videos, let me know. If you want to get on the email list, go out to my website, lightchannelphotography.com, and subscribe on the email list. Okay, that's only on the website, lightchannelphotography.com. Otherwise, you can subscribe to this station and you'll get an update. I believe they'll send an update out to you automatically when I post a new video. So, have a great day, and thanks for joining us on Chick Eye, and we hope that you're getting some great photographs. If you want to, let us know where to look at your photographs. All right, thanks. See you soon.